Shanti, and a very good evening to everybody present here and everybody online. A warm welcome to you all as well. So today we've got a very, very interesting topic, and it's interesting because it sounds very heroic, like superhero, but it's actually honoring the real heroes of our lives. And it has been known that when a boy becomes a father, he gets some supernatural powers that he becomes a superhero for his children and his family. And we know Father's Day is around the corner, so we want to honor all the fathers who are here present today and even outside in the world. So we have got two very interesting personalities with us today. We've got John McConnel. You know him very well, I think so. He is a trainer. He's been practicing meditation for more than 35 years now. He is an expert in teaching, coaching, specifically in the areas of how to manage our anger and stress. And he's traveled a lot, actually. Very gentle, humble, humorous. And I remember last year when he came and he did a series over here, and he said that heroes are the one who'd never take revenge. I still remember that line that he had shared. So I would really welcome John today on stage. But we have another interesting personality, that is Haran. Haran has been with the Brahma Kumaris and practicing meditation for around 24 years now, since his birth, like childhood. And interestingly, he's an architect. And how he balances spirituality with his profession of being an architect is very interesting and fascinating to know. So I would invite both of them on stage. I'm just waiting for John to come up. But Haran, please take your seat. And John will be with us shortly. So enjoy the talk, enjoy the conversation that we have today. Welcome, John. And at 7:30, we'll open the floor for question answers. So you can feel free to ask your questions as well. Over to both of you. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Can you hear me? Yep.
And you can hear me? Yes.
So, yeah. Sorry about my throat. So, this is the first time I'm doing an interview in English. So excuse me if I make any mistakes. So when Nidhiben called me, if you want to do an interview, then I straight away said no, I can't do this. Then I got emotionally triggered. She used a word. Can you guys guess the word she used? No, she used the word father. About father. Then I was like, oh, you're going to do the interview for the fathers? And I said yes. Then then I asked her who am I having this conversation with? Then she told me it's John. Then I was like, wow. So it's going to be interesting, I guess. So John, I would like to begin this conversation about appreciating the fathers. So I've written it down about the fathers. So the day is dedicated to acknowledging and appreciating the contribution and the influence of fathers in the lives of their children and families in their personal lives. It's the day to express love, gratitude and respect to our fathers, and it's the day to recognize their hard work, guidance, sacrifice and impact that they have on their children and their society. So, how did you feel when you were born as a father?
How do I feel? I think privileged is one of the main words, and fortunate, because it's probably the most important role we have as males, being able to be with children. I mean, these days it's all very complicated compared with how it might have been, when I was a father. It's much more challenging now in so many different ways. Environmentally, the poverty, the high cost of housing, etc., etc. So anyone, and I don't think, the title is sort of superheroes. I think any parent is a superhero in this day and age because it's so demanding in so many ways. But the father's part is special. Again, you see, it's all changed so much, hasn't it? The roles used to be quite fixed. The father was the provider. The father was the one who, looked after the security of things, and then the mother provided the nurturing and stayed at home. Not always all the time, but some of the time. And the roles were all very clear. And you could make general statements then which probably, would be valid. Now it's all mixed up. The father can easily be the mother, because in the sense that quite often now, fathers will stay at home and look after the children because the mother can earn more money than the husband. And now you can get, families with two fathers or two mothers, and it's all very challenging. But at the end of the day, I think, when you have that role and that responsibility, it's one of the most rewarding things you could possibly do, because it changes you. It takes you into another world, because instead of thinking about me all the time, you have to start thinking about us, and you have to start thinking about the children. And children, especially when they're babies, there are no limits to their demands, day and night. So you can't just go to bed at night and wake up the next morning and get on with your life. You could be interrupted many times. And I think, because our children were born only 15 months apart, I think for 5 years I didn't have a proper night's sleep because one or the other would be waking up or coming into the bed and all those sorts of things. So, it stretches you and it develops you and it makes you into a very different sort of person than if you haven't taken on that role. And there are lots of people who play that role of fathers, even though they may not be the biological father of the child. So,
Wow. Interesting. So when you talk about the role of a father, what kind of impact that your father had on you?
Yes, I found that question quite challenging when you sent it to me, because you can look back on your own childhood. I don't think any of us has a perfect childhood, not in these times. And it's very easy to focus on the weaknesses or the faults and neglect the good things. And I would say my father didn't fulfill all the needs which I would have liked him to have fulfilled. Like, it would have been nice if he'd played with me. It would have been nice if he gave me a cuddle occasionally. He was very good at providing the space in which we lived, the house, so I'm very grateful for that. He was keen on us having an education, I'm very grateful for that. And he was kind and he was gentle, and I'm sure that's had an impact on me. And the other thing is, he was, in a way, non-materialistic, because he never went for a promotion. He stayed in the same job all his life. So, in lots of ways, he was good. But we have to realise, or be honest, I think, that there are always benefits, but there are also challenges. Would you agree or not? Yeah. And some people are nodding very firmly on that one. And I think the wisdom you acquire when you get older And you look back on these things and reflect on these things, and then you take account of all the circumstances that your own parents were in, both before they became parents and when they were parents. You develop a lot more compassion and understanding. And like if I look back, to my father, he was in the army because, there was that World War. His own father died when he was very young, so he never really had a positive role model of a father with which to handle us. And he was very nervous and timid and anxious for whatever reason, and he didn't like going out the house much. All sorts of things which did affect the quality of our lives. We never spoke about our feelings or anything like that. But then again, in those days, men would be seen dead pushing a pram down the road. That wasn't a man's job. The babies were for the mothers. So when you take account of all the cultural factors and all the other environmental factors and that, then you see things in a different way and with more understanding and more compassion. And also, once you get a spiritual perspective, which I didn't have then, you also know that nobody's to blame. It is what it is.
So what led you for the spirituality?
What led me to spirituality? Stress and depression. And finding it very hard being a single. I think I was a single parent by that stage. Yes, I was. Trying to manage running a house by myself, 2 teenage children who are quite demanding in different ways. Trying to have a bit of a social life. Very challenging job as a social worker. It was all there together. And yes, it got too much. And then I ended up having 6 months off work, and then had to reevaluate my life and the way I was dealing with things.
So you said you had 2 children, right?
Yes.
So if you had to go back to your spiritual understanding and raise your kids in that way, what would you do differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. Can you hear the question all right? It sounds a bit soft. Yeah. Maybe put the microphone a bit nearer, because I'm finding it a bit hard to hear you, actually. Yeah, just repeat that question.
My question was, if you had to go back to your spiritual understanding and raise your kids in that way, what would you do differently?
Yes. I think you have to realise it all starts with yourself. And because of not really, I don't think you get prepared for being a parent. You learn as you go along, and you make lots of mistakes, especially on your first child. The first child is the experiment. Hopefully you learn from the first one. You don't make quite so many mistakes with the second one. And then the more you have, the more you get used to it, and the easier it becomes. But we stopped at 2. But, yeah, so you can't go back and change the past. It is what it is. But if I'd known what I know now, and I would say becoming a parent today, I would do some things different. First of all, I would separate the role from the soul, because that's a very big thing, because quite often you say, I'm a father or I'm a mother, and then you identify with that role, and then if anybody sort of says anything about your fathering abilities or whatever, you take it as a personal attack, and there's no space there to separate myself as a soul from the role that I'm playing. And once you have that insight, it sort of frees it all up. So that can help for a start. And another key thing, which would have made a big difference if I'd known it or felt it, was having self-respect and self-confidence, which you get through spiritual knowledge, because you know there's more to you than meets the eye. You know you're innately good, and that you've got within you lots of resources which you can use, but they need nurturing. And I didn't have that awareness, when I was bringing my children up, and because I felt I was unlovable, I spent all my time trying to please them, and everybody actually. It wasn't just them, but I can remember once, I was living in quite a small house, and I used to, let all their friends come in when they were 8 or 9 or whatever, because it was better for them to be in a safe environment, having fun in the house rather than being running around the streets. And there were, I think, 10 children in the house, because my daughter had her friends and my son had his friends. And then I still can't believe it happened, but it did. I think my son said, "Oh, can I have my friends to stay overnight?" So I said, "Yes, okay." And then a few minutes later, my daughter said, "Can I have my friends to stay overnight?" And initially I said no, and then she said, "That's not fair," which is something which kids often say, don't they? "That's not fair." So I said yes. So I ended up with 10 children staying overnight, just kipping on the floor or on a sleeping bag or on a settee and things like that. And when I came down in the morning, there was like 12 pairs of shoes in the kitchen, including my own son and daughter. So I look back now and I think it would have been better if I'd had more confidence, if I'd been able to maintain stronger boundaries, and if I'd been clearer about certain rules and things like that.
So like, what legacy you would like to leave to your children, if you want to?
Well, I can see the legacy already, or some of it, because children copy their parents, and there's a saying that you can't be taught values, you catch values. You pick up so much from your parents, without you as a parent really realizing it. And I see my daughter now running around like a headless chicken, trying to get the kids ready for school, driving them to school, always late, every morning without fail, having the same arguments and discussions every morning. It's amazing. And they're just replicating what used to happen with me, because I was always running around and saying, "Come on, hurry up, we're going to be late," and then they would get to school just in time. So that's, I can see they've picked up something like that, but then there are other things which are picked up, like they're very friendly, they're very caring, they're very egalitarian, they don't have any prejudices, not that I'm aware of, very accepting of people, they're concerned about the world. So I'm not saying they've got all that from me, but they were in an environment where that was encouraged, if you like. So, in fact, my daughter phoned me up. She's under loads of pressure at the moment for various reasons. And when we were talking, I said, "Oh, I'll give you a talk, this evening about fathers and that." And one of the questions is, what legacy are you leaving? So I said, if I was to, depart tomorrow, what is the legacy, that I would have left? And then she said, "Oh, I'm too stressed to think about anything like that. But the one thing that comes to mind is kindness. So I've always been kind." And I think that's quite a nice legacy to leave, isn't it? Being kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. But if people have experienced kindness, and that takes many forms, doesn't it? It's not just a word. There's all sorts of things: listening, supporting, encouraging, maybe giving advice sometimes. Although again, you have to be very careful with that, very careful, because lots of people don't like advice. And if you're not careful, like I was recently in Spain, because I always go for the grandchildren's birthdays, and there's 3 grandchildren, so I go 3 times for them, and then I go for my daughter's birthday, so that's 4 birthdays a year. And
you're a grandfather for a dog also.
Yeah, my daughter's got 3 boys, and yes, she lives in Spain permanently with her Spanish husband.
Yeah.
So yes, I go there, and she was the last time I was there. It's very hard you have to get out of these roles that you create, where you think you know best and you're giving advice. And she's 48 now, and she was buying a bracelet, on behalf of her boys, because she knew they wouldn't get their act together to buy her something. So she got it for them so they could give it to her, and maybe give her a bit of, or give their dad a bit of money towards it. And, I was standing beside her initially as she was choosing, and I started to give a bit of advice, and I thought, stop it, get out of here, leave her to it. She knows what she needs and wants without you interfering. So you have to be very careful in the role, and you have to be prepared to let go. Letting go is a very important part of being a parent. You have to let your children make their own mistakes, but be there to support them when they're making them and after they've made them. Never ever close the door on them unless they're actually being very threatening towards you, which is a different thing. But most kids or young people aren't like that. But no, many qualities are needed. Many qualities. At times you need determination. You need courage. You need patience, loads of patience, unbelievable patience, and hope, and especially today, I think, because, with the phones and things like that, a lot of teenagers now are addicted to their phones, their attention span has gone, and they can't concentrate. Like the grandchildren find it really hard to study for exams and things like that, because their concentration is shot by all these games and videos, and you can try and control them, but they still...
Very busy, and we kind of left aside, and we are not mentored properly. That's what I feel like. So we have to, I think most of us, we don't understand the value of mentored by a male role model. I mean, a masculine person from a society. So I think the number one person which comes to my mind is the Supreme Father. What kind of relationship you have with the Supreme Father himself?
Are you going to say a bit more about the Supreme Father? What do you mean by the Supreme Father? Because there'll be people, on the web or whatever, will be wondering what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So when
So
you
the
say
Supreme Father, let's say, is the Father of our all souls. So we all are souls. So he is the Creator. He is the Father figure for the whole souls. So he is the Supreme Father. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You tell me your version, how you see him and what he does for you, and then I'll...
I see him as the supreme power for me. He's kind of when it comes to actual father, he's the number one thing comes to my mind. That's how I view him.
So what does he do for you then?
Every day, whatever I do, since the time I wake up, since the time I go to bed, I just I feel like there's some kind of supreme power which created me, or which always protecting me. And I think the main role of a father is to provide and protect. So those two roles have been primarily done by the Supreme Father. So if we all exist, there should be some person who have been created us. So I think that's how I have the perspective on him.
So what does he provide?
He provides me the powers.
With what, sorry?
Powers.
Powers.
It's kind of like a protection for me.
In what way?
In all ways, like a father, if I have a father, so he protects me from all sort of negativity from the outside, my internal negativities, and I think that's the protection he gives to me.
Yeah, because I think there's more to it than just the provider and the protector.
Yeah.
Because you're from Sri Lanka, aren't you? Yes, right. And there's a lot of souls from Sri Lanka in this area, isn't it? Or somewhere in this area of London. And I have to say, quite often, if I get a taxi, it'll often be a Sri Lankan taxi driver. And I would say they're amazing in terms of their commitment to provide. They're the ones I've come across anyway. If you have a little conversation in the taxi, working so many hours every day to provide, and they provide two main things. And the first thing is roof over the head. And then the other thing, which I've noticed they're passionate about, and you will know, is what? They're passionate about their children getting what?
Getting settled in their life.
Getting a good education. Yeah. And it's amazing, they'll put all their resources into, including private classes and everything else, so the kids can pass the exams for, private school and things like that. So they get a bursary or a scholarship. And, I find that, very inspiring, totally committed to their children that way. And they would do anything for their kids if anyone was to attack them on a physical level, you know what I mean? So, so there's that side to it all. And again, you see, I would say you're quite fortunate because I think your family were already in, you were brought up as a BK, weren't you?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, and you've had all that moral foundation, and you've had all those classes and all sorts of things, which obviously have brought you great benefits. And then there are souls or people like myself, from the West, who have rejected religion, rejected God, and all the rest of it. And for us, it's quite different. So, I would say it's taken me a long time to even accept that, God is my Father, because I was so angry with God for all the things that had been done to me in His name when I was a child, all the threats to go to hell and all the hittings by the teachers or the nuns, the strap we used to get for the slightest thing, and it was all done in God's name. So, I have a very different experience. But I have to say now, and what's helped me, you have to separate yourself out as a soul from your identity as, in my case, John. They're two different things. So there's the John personality, there's John's life, John's experience, but John has had more than one birth. He's had lots of other births beforehand, I believe. Do you believe in reincarnation? Does everyone here believe in reincarnation? Or rebirth? No? Okay. Well, that's a very important thing. You don't have to believe in it, but, the idea that we've had more than one birth, the idea that we're souls, on this earth, and we go through different births and play different roles. So I would say probably I was a mother in my last birth, because I've got quite a lot of so-called, mothering qualities. But again, you need to go beyond mother and father, which is like the supreme soul. He goes beyond race or beyond gender and everything else. He might call himself the father, but actually, he's genderless like the rest of us, and he's a being of pure positive energy and power and love and all sorts of things. And if I connect with him as a soul, and forget about John, then it works. If I connect with him as John, with all John's previous hang-ups about God and everything else, it's much harder to connect. Does that make any sense to people? So you can make that separation. It makes it much easier, because I used to think, I don't want you as a father, thank you very much, I've had enough of fathers. And then it becomes a form of torture, trying to make yourself connect with a father figure when you have so many negative experiences of what father figures. I'm not just talking about my own father, but like the priest used to be called father, in the church you'd always call him Father Frank or Father whoever. There's lots of fathers around, other models of males or fathers which do influence you and have an impact. But once you get through that, once you connect, then, and once, with the BKs we have really lessons every day or classes in which, the personality of the father is revealed, and he's got a great sense of humour, doesn't judge, doesn't blame, completely accepts, as you say, gives lots of support, lots of love. I mean, the whole thing is totally different.
Yeah. So you have been working with the young people, yeah?
I don't directly work with young people, no. I know some young people, like my grandchildren and that, yes.
So, do you feel like, do you been fathering, other younger people on this journey of the spirituality?
No, not really. I treat everyone as a soul.
Yeah.
And lots of young people have lots of wisdom, actually. I'm quite impressed. They're much more sorted than a lot of older people. They're open-minded, they're vegan, they're anti-cruelty, to animals, they're passionate about the environment. I think young people have a lot to teach us. I don't think, we have all the answers, not by any means.
So how do you support them? How do you help them in this journey of the spirituality?
Well, I don't particularly. I think I support, just through changing yourself, and doing your best to be honest and open and humble and kind and caring, and interacting with everybody, as brothers or sisters or whatever. They're souls, and some of them are saying very mature, very wise. They've been from lots of births and done lots of things, no different to me in lots of ways.
So, shall we go to the audience to make some questions? If anyone wants to
it would be nice.
share something or would like to ask any questions, you can. It's your time.
You said in the beginning that you were suffering from anxiety and stress. That's the reason you got into spirituality. Right now, would you be able to just give us a summary of how spirituality has helped you, helped your life, and to get to overcome these anxiety and stress? Just a brief summary.
Brief summary. Well, I think that awareness, there's more to you than a body, that, you know, each of us is a human being. There's a being in the body, and we need to pay attention to the being. So that, in other words, we need to create some time and some space where we can sit back and connect with our inner being, listen to our inner voice. And we've got two voices inside, haven't we? We've got that nagging one that's always telling you how horrible you are or useless you are and all the rest of it. But if we turn the volume down on that one and listen to the other one and tune into the innate wisdom we have inside, and then if we connect, you know, with the Supreme, and if we nurture all our inner powers and qualities, we've got so many values and so many qualities inside us, but we don't realize we got them until we start looking. And then the other thing is to learn to detach. Don't take anything personally. Everything is perfect the way it is. It's meant to be the way it is. Everything is here to help you to learn to grow and improve. So it's all, I like to use the word, in a spiritual gymnasium. So we're in a spiritual gymnasium, and we're all on our own sort of personal keep fit course, fit course, and we'll all have weights to either pick up to strengthen us, or we may have to remove some weights, those heavy weights which are guilt and shame and all the rest of it which are weighing us down, all the worry and etc., etc. Let go of all of that and see things in a new way. And always regular meditation, regular relaxation, and that needs to be complemented by a good lifestyle. So no meat, because that will really drag you down, some exercise and walks in nature, and appreciating all the good things in your life rather than focusing on all the things you haven't got or all the things you're doing wrong. Does that help?
And how long did your nagging voice, how long did it take for you to turn it down?
Oh, God. It's a lifetime's work, because you think you've turned it down and then something will happen and it will trigger off a reaction inside, and before you know it, you can easily go down into the pits. But once you have awareness, you can get out of the pits much more quickly. So it hasn't gone completely, but I'm working on it. And the best way is to accept everything about yourself, all the bad bits as well as the good bits, but focus on the good. And I think I've spent a lot of my life as a BK in, we would call it bhakti style, but where devotional style, where it's a sanskar, where you're begging and praying to God and asking God to do this and to do that. And if you're not careful, rather than, you can spend all your time complaining about yourself. Help me to be more peaceful, help me to let go of my anger about this, etc., etc. And if you spend all your time doing that, you're not really developing the other side. And the interesting thing is that God just focuses on the good. He knows who you are, He knows you're amazing, He knows you're going through a dark time, but he's holding on there and just seeing what you were and what you're going to become. And I need to remember that more, but the other has been so deeply imprinted over many births, not just this birth, that there's a suppression there which we need to release and recover from. I mean, these are my thoughts of what they're worth. I'm not saying everybody would agree with what I'm saying at all, but anyway, you're going to ask a nice, interesting question. Oh?
Yeah, so you said like, separating your... Hello? Yeah. You said like separating your body, so your soul from your body. So we being inhuman, we always tend to cling with heart tags, which is being provided to us from childhood or whatsoever people call you. So how did you able to separate yourself? That, okay, I'm soul now, and now onwards I'm going to see everyone as a soul.
Yeah, well, that's knowledge and awareness, I think. I'm in a body, and I need the body. It's not a case of dismissing the body or ignoring the body, and the body will keep giving me, or I, the soul, messages, So, I've got a pain in my toe, the message is, maybe you need to cut your toenails. I may have certain, feelings in my stomach, which could be I need some food, but it could also be you're holding a lot of suppressed anger there. So, it's like the driver of the car, that's a good analogy, isn't it? That, you get in a car, you drive the car, but you're not the car. You have to control the car, you have to look at the dials, make sure you've got enough petrol, that the battery is okay, all those sorts of things. And really, once you develop that understanding, which comes quite quickly actually because it's natural in a way, and in the West, I think, we've, through the science, which is changing, I have to say it's changing, the scientists often use the brain all the time, when actually they mean the soul, but they haven't made that connection. They say the brain thinks this, the brain does that. Well, actually, it's the soul using the brain as like a computer, which makes it very different. Does that help a bit? And then if you can see everyone in your life as a spiritual being, that takes you beyond race, religion, gender, and all those things, because underneath all those exterior things we're exactly the same. We're little points of conscious energy, little stars or diamonds, whatever you want to call that. And it's surprising, when you get into that, people can recognize that. And I can walk down the street and people will give me a nod, even though I haven't said anything to them and I don't know them, because there's some sort of vibration going on which is connecting us. So it makes life much more interesting, actually. And I know I was in Parma a couple of months back, helping out up there in a centre, in a space centre, and this sister came in with her baby and the husband, and we just, one look, and we couldn't believe it, because we must have had quite a connection in the past. And I don't know, from Adam, I've never met him before in my life, and there was an instant recognition of, on a soul level, and it was very nice. And this sort of thing can happen. You meet somebody for the first time and you feel as if you've known them all your life. They're like really close friends. They are, but they're from a previous birth and they're in a different body. So everything opens up in a different way, and life becomes multidimensional, very interesting and very exciting, because you don't know what's going to happen next.
I have a question.
Oh, you're not allowed. You'll have to wait.
I'm curious to know from Haran and yourself, how do you define a superhero? What's your definition of a superhero? And then John, what's your definition of a superhero?
My definition of a superhero is, I think we have all watched all these superhero movies, and most of these superheroes are, as I've said, the main role of them is to protect and provide and protect. That's their main role. I think that's the definition for the superheroes. In terms of spirituality, if you are speaking, superhero is the one who guides the person, guides the society, or a person who kind of mentors the whole, what do you say, a clan. So I think that's the definition for me for a superhero. Yep.
A superhero is somebody who overcomes all obstacles, and at the moment, there's a huge battle going on in the world between good and evil. Those are old-fashioned terms for it, but actually, you can see there's a ferocious fight going on between goodness and the greed. At that moment, this country is being ruined by greed. Or, everyone's on zero contract, or not everybody, a lot of people, etc., can't afford rent. Greed. There are people who are extracting all the values, and accumulating vast wealth. And then there are others who are living lives of simplicity, living lives of love and generosity, and are serving in so many ways, helping their neighbours or working in the NHS. Carers, they're superheroes. They do an amazing job. Like one of my neighbours, she's recently fallen and fractured her arm and her hand, can't do anything for herself, but her neighbour, who is also, now a friend, is washing her, dressing her every morning, helping her to get ready for bed at night, because she can't undo buttons or do anything. Hardly, she's just got one hand rather than two, and it hurts to move this one. And there are carers who've been looking after, children for many, many years, or looking after their husband or their wife with very little support. There's so many people who have so many wonderful qualities which are transformative. They may not realise it, but they're transforming themselves through carrying on, overcoming these things. And they're also creating wonderful examples, inspiring examples for the rest of us. So I don't think it has to be super cosmic. It can be, on a macro or micro level. And there's loads of heroes around everywhere, actually. We just have to tune in and look for them, and then support them and recognise them and appreciate them. And that starts with appreciating yourself. Because I think anyone on a spiritual path is a hero, because they're going completely against all the trends in the outside world. Outside there, it's all about me. What can I get? What can I take? Spirituality is all about we. What can I give? Let me give peace rather than anger. Let me be patient. Let me be loving. And that message is much more powerful in the end than the other, because we see it around us. You get instant karma now, and all the structures of this society, and actually all around the world, they're tumbling before our eyes, everything. The economic system, political system, the climate, all tumbling down, because the values supporting it are all based on greed and exploitation rather than sustaining and sharing and caring. Am I right? And we all know it now, and we know what we've got to do. We've all got to step up to the mark, and we're all going to be victorious in the end. It's guaranteed. Yeah, so what's your question? I'm dying to hear it.
I've got two, actually.
Two?
For
Right.
each of you. First of all, when you said, oh yes, and you find the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, has got a great sense of humour. I'd like an example of that, because I haven't experienced that. So where's what sense of humour? So sorry. Yes, if you could give me an example of the sense of humour.
Right, well, we have, say, these recordings, or these, which are read out now, because Brahma Baba, who's the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, he was a channel for God's thoughts and energy and more, and like the other day, he says the equivalent of the father is very amused by the activities of the children. Like watching you. It's like watching a Mickey Mouse cartoon, because you're all playing around and you're not doing what God would like you to do. I would see that as a sense of humour. Or he says, I have huge folders with all your promises in, which you've never kept. But he says it in a light, humorous way.
But if we weren't part of the messages that you receive every morning, we wouldn't be privy to that. Like I've learned something from you tonight that wouldn't have educated me as to the Supreme's sense of humour.
Yes, that's right. That's why it'd be good to do the meditation course, and then you can come. All right, we'll come along to the classes then. And then you'll hear these things yourself. And he sees it all as a play. And a play has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And some of the characters play funny parts, and it all depends, different perspectives. And he's not saying it's all funny, but on occasions. No, it's a tragic comedy. There's all sorts in it, and if we can laugh at ourselves too. I mean, like the other day, I got really upset because I've got a new mini speaker, and it's really good. I like it, and then the battery drained, and I couldn't find the USB cable to recharge it, and I got very frustrated with myself, and then thought, I must get another one as quickly as possible. I mean, I can laugh about it now. And I went online, and you could get one for £5.50, but wait a week, or pay £12.50 and get it the next day. And I clicked the £12.50, and then I thought, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And I sat down, and then I detached and looked at it objectively, and I thought, I'm not going to get attached to this. This is a warning for me. I need to be patient. I'm not going to get dependent on one speaker just so I can hear the music much more clearly and loudly. And then I clicked the £5.99 instead, and it was meant to arrive a week later. In fact, it arrived 3 days later, and I was so excited, and I tore the envelope open. I mean, it's really funny. And I went to connect it, and it was the wrong cable. But you see, I would see that as a good example of how you can turn something which could be quite frustrating into a joke. It was funny. It was really funny. Sorry?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
You talked about you feel you can wake up in the mornings and you feel that you are being guided and protected, but guided.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to know what that feeling is like, because I feel guided when I speak to another human being, or when I used to speak to my own dad when he was alive. I've got a dilemma going on at the moment with my career, and I feel, that it's so different when you've got a human being that can guide you or who knows you or says, why don't you do this or try that? Whereas when it's the Supreme Being, there's no voice coming down to you. So do you feel guided just because you meditate and you feel that you're in the presence of the Supreme Being, because there's no voice coming down and guiding you? How is it, and in what way do you feel guided?
I've been meditating. I've been a serious meditator for past 5-6 years, because I'm 24 now. So when I was in my school, I was not taking this meditation too seriously. When I was like 18, 19, then only I started doing meditation. I will at least do 30 minutes every day for past 6-7 years. So when I meditate, I've been taught since childhood to meditate in a certain way, that I could feel the supreme energy. For an example, if an engine needs to operate, or let's say a computer wants to operate, a phone wants to operate, it needs some kind of power. So without a power, a phone can't operate, an engine can't operate without a fuel. So I understood that mechanism, even our body, even our soul, we can't function well without any kind of power. So I understood very well in a very young age. I think I'm very fortunate about that. And coming to your question, every day in morning we have kind of principle that we wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we meditate. So I've been doing that also. For even though I was not consistent enough, I try to keep up with waking up at that time and to meditate. So the point is to meditate at that time. Is all the cosmos, the universe, everything is silent. So you feel yourself, you feel your soul. So you can take the energy as much as possible at that time. So the moment I wake up, what I feel is that someone is guiding me. That should be the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Father. So that knowledge comes from the classes or the guidance we read every day. That thought we got teased every day, every morning. We have we call it Murli. So I think that's the guidance I've got, and I use that every morning. I think that answered the question.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and another quick one you can do for yourself. Apart from that, you can write a letter to God, or the Supreme, whatever you want to call that energy. Just say, what do I need to do at this moment in time? I've got a dilemma. What should I do? Meditate for 2 or 3 minutes, and then write whatever comes into your mind with your non-writing hand.
With your non-writing hand?
Yes. And that produces amazing results.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't have to do that at 4 o'clock in the morning?
No, not at all. No, any time we will do for that. But you need to create a space of silence and peace, and focus and go within, and then it works wonders.
The reason, sorry for that. So the reason I meditate in 4 o'clock in the morning, because there's no noise. So there's no, so the negative vibe is away. So I would like to ask one last question. Answer it very briefly, if you could. You were talking about connecting with the Spirit, Supreme Father. If anyone would like to be in the contact with the Supreme Father, how they can do that?
Maybe John, you can give us a short guided meditation. That could be the answer.
That could be the answer. Yes.
We all can meditate together.
Right. Well, I was wanting. Can I read this then? Which is a sort of meditation.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Or leave it to me. All right then, because the time. Yeah, well, I can answer that one afterwards then, because time is moving on, isn't it?
All these disturbances are in one's mind. See, mind is matrix of matter. Spirituality the mind would be faculty of the soul. If you turn your mind towards the faculty of soul, your disturbance or things what are in your mind will be nurtured. So I would recommend that we turn our mind to the faculty of the soul.
Yes. So we turn in and then we connect up. Yes. And then after that, when we've filled ourselves, then we can go out again. So it's in, up and out.
So that's,
Yeah, thank you.
that's a good guide.
It is, yes. Right, okay. So I'm going to read this because it's very good. And yeah, it comes from a book called The Prophet by Cahill Gibran. And so just tune in, especially for parents and fathers and mothers, but really it can apply to any of us. So, and a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you." So this idea of being detached and accepting of things. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So if we just think about that for a minute, because it applies to so many things. Nothing belongs to us. And we need to be loving and detached and use everything in the right way for the benefit of ourselves and others. So we connect with our inner power, we connect with the divine, we fill ourselves and then we give what we've received, and it increases 100-fold. And in this way, we become superheroes. So, Om Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Haran. And everybody present, I'm sure you all enjoyed it, didn't you? The very practical examples that both the brothers gave us today. So really thank you. Just quick heads up that next... Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was the child present who started that.
She enjoyed your superhero conversation.
That's because you're a superhero, aren't you?
Not yet there. Okay. So next, this Saturday, we have one standalone session on positive thinking. So anybody who would want to understand how you can transform your thoughts to right thinking and then positive thinking, most welcome, 2 to 4, this Saturday afternoon in person. And next Tuesday, same time, same place, we'll have a very interesting topic, which we are marking the Refugee Week, and it's called Educate, Elevate, and Enrich. And we have Sister Kanan to share on that topic with us. So next Tuesday. And John and Haran were talking about the inner work that we need to do. And there is a beautiful book in the shop downstairs which says, it's time for inner work. So you can explore that too on your way out. Thank you. Good evening and happy journey.
Thank you, Sister.
Thank you.